Hello. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Um, on behalf of America Society, we're delighted to welcome you this afternoon to the Inter-American Review panel conversation. We are very honored to present Peruvian artists Nicole, Franchy, and Fernando Bryce in conversation with Aimé Iglesias Lukin, Director and Chief Curator of Art at America Society. This panel is part of our exhibition Inter-American Review, on view downstairs on our research and library space. This program is part of our 60th anniversary celebration.
Thank you so much, Carla. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. And I would like to extend the thanks if I have 1 minute. Not only to Nicole and Fernando, especially because you're about to hear plan of what we're hoping to discuss is how this project came to be. And it's quite stunning in terms of how quick and creative it was, the process. And so I want to thank them for jumping aboard this adventure, but also to our team that really took this as a growing opportunity, but also like really put a lot of effort, especially to Daniela. Thank you so much, Daniela. She really spent countless hours like going through our archives and creating systems so that they could review it from afar. Um, because as a brief, very brief introduction, Nicole and Fernando, even though they lived in New York for many years, for those of you who in the audience don't know them, and my apologies if I'm repeating things that you all know, but they are a couple. But they both lived in New York for many years. Now they live in Lima, where they are from originally, in Peru. And they knew the institution very well from their many years here. And because of their work's engagement with history and this institution in particular. We'll talk about that more. But before that, I wanted to ask them to talk a little bit about their own practice before this project. And in particular, as a way to explain that, to talk about how did you use the archives? When we called them, part of the thing was to our challenge, and Carla's idea to bring them was also because we were trying to figure out artists that really work with archive, and both of them in very different ways do that. What you see on the background is also like a lot of photos of the project. So anyway, which you can see in case you haven't seen it. I might say the obvious, but this exhibition is downstairs in our office space. So you will see the Amazonia exhibition, and towards the end, there's a glass door. Those are our archives, which are always open to the public, and we always have an exhibition there. So yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Carla and Aimé, for inviting us to this huge adventure that has been working with cultural archives of the institution. It's 60 years of the institution, as you all know. And thank you, of course, Daniela Manrique, that has been our eyes and ears and everything for this process that has been, intense. She did like everything to enable us viewing like in the best way the archives in order to make the selection. And well, we'll talk a little bit further about that in a bit. Well, for more than a decade, I've been working with archives, and the idea to work with mostly images from postcards and images and text from publications and systems of knowledge comes from this idea of rethinking this westernized gaze. No, so what I do is I call my work associative landscapes, because I am very invested in the idea of landscape and territory and power. So that whole these three ideas have been like really accompanying me like since the beginning, and I'm mostly since my experience as doing a master's in Belgium, because it's only when you get out of your country that you realize you're as you said in your text of this must be a place that you realize that you're a Latino, right? And so yeah, so this idea of excerpting and cutting through postcards and encyclopedias and material related to systems of knowledge, and lately dealing with information from the press and from informative releases related to mining and illegal logging and illegal mining, and this idea of territory and power has been a great of great interest for me and part of my work. No? Mm-hmm.
And, and to precise a little bit the question, I mean, if I can take a moment, we're going to go back between Spanish and English. I hope everybody feels good about that. Spanglish is our home language here at America Society. And but so Nicole, your work, as you just described, works a lot with archives and especially with photo collage as a technique. But the very interesting thing is that you really depend on the archives for your practice. This was, like before, and that's this the case also with Fernando. Fernando's work literally like duplicates in a very manual, laborious way. And Fernando, puedes explicarlo un poquito más. Archives from different places and different moments of history. So just to point back, you as listeners to the fact that it really is stunning that, we invited them to work on an archive, but they lo venían haciendo hace muchísimos años. Lo venían haciendo hace muchos años y de forma muy natural y de forma muy independiente y con resultados visuales bien distintos, lo cual es curioso, ¿no? No pasa con tantas parejas de artistas que haya semejantes, sino sintonía tan complementaria además.
Buenas noches. So I still feel not so confident speaking in English, so I will switch to Spanish. Bueno, yo trabajo con nivel de archivos hace mucho tiempo. Para mí, para nosotros, fue un desafío trabajar a la distancia, ¿no es cierto? Y además a partir de una institución. So I worked before, some years before, also with an institution, for example, the Museum of Reproducciones Pictóricas de San Marcos. It was a kind of same situation, no? Where I had to build something, rebuild a history a partir de un archivo, ¿no? Well, and my work is always interested in political history, the representation of history through publications, propaganda, advertising. I mean, the whole image world from the 20th and 21st century. Of course, today is a bit different because we have other kind of images and well, but basically, since I would say 25 years, I work with the documents and the idea of archive, no, with the la memoria archivada, no. Well, and in this case, in the American Society, that was very interesting also because I worked before with, began my work with the review of the history of Peru, the modern history from the 20s to the 2000, and the representation of the country. And then beginning of the 2000s, I switched to the relations between the United States and Latin America through images, the Cuban Revolution, or the 50s also, I mean the Cold War. And suddenly, 20 years after, I came to this situation to work with an institution in script in this Cold War history too, no? And that was also very interesting. But sobre todo a partir del arte y la cultura, no? For me, culture is in some way always politics, and politics is culture. I mean, there are two terms that has to do each other todo el tiempo, no? Every time, no?
Yeah, so in terms of explaining a little bit the context for those of you who might not visit or read about it. So America Society is turning 60 years. There's a beautiful backdrop for a party that we held on Thursday that they also created in collaboration with a textile producer called Sudestada, a great creator from Argentina that helped them also create the beautiful fabric piece that is hanging. So all of these are things that came up from these, from this research about the archive on the occasion of the 60th anniversary. So America Society was founded in 1965. This building opened in 1967. And since the opening, it was very important for the group of people who founded it, led by David Rockefeller, to create it with a cultural diplomacy wing, let's call it, a foundation that would promote the culture of the Americas here in the United States. They did that, and I'm quoting David Rockefeller's statement in the New York Times, because culture was a fundamental tool to prevent the spread of communism. So we're very much in the midst of the Cold War. But the beautiful thing that happened, and I don't want to get too much into this, but it talks a little bit about the result of what they're doing now, is that ever since the beginning of the programming at America Society, artists pushed back to make sure that they would have representation. And they understood that this institution was also an opportunity to have some sort of embassy, going back, that this idea of the cultural diplomacy had multiple ways in which to work. It could be, certain vision of what the Americas were, and certain goals of creating hemispheric dialogue, of developmental policies being done. But it also was an opportunity for artists to do experimental things. So immediately after the opening of America Society, you had Marta Minujín doing the Minu Code, which is one of the things that they highlighted in their project. Like we had like 100 Years of Solitude being translated through a fund of the America Society. The institution was called the Center for Inter-American Relations, which explains also the fantastic, very smart title that they created, because the title of the show is Inter-American Review. A review is the name of the magazine that functioned for decades at America Society, as a cultural and literary magazine, a very important resource led by Daniel Shapiro, who is now at CUNY. Anyway, but back to the way that you work through this history. I just wanted to say 2 or 3 things, so like everybody could be on the same page. But how was it? How was it different to work from all your experience working with archives, both of you? How was this one different, or what was your process like?
Yeah, for me and personally, I definitely went head on to read about the institution and have a sense of the list of the exhibitions and the content, and notice right away, like there was like a plethora of thematics, and that went from anthropology, you know um, um, thematics related to colonialism, um, native art, and the works, a lot of things. So I didn't I didn't approach the archive like necessarily as I didn't want it to approach the archive as and you can tell there's not many collage on the series, because not only I've been doing a lot of drawing for the last 10 or more years that may or may not have been included in the work, but I wanted to have a sense of a feeling of the images I got, the text I got. I had poetry in my hands. I had sketches from artists like Gego sketches. I had so many things in my hands and also like confronting an archive of other artists is also delicate because you are I mean, there's so much respect for the work of other artists also. So I went on to draw from the archives and I did a lot of work with palimpsests like this piece, no, with the maps and the drawings of the findings, no, of pre-Columbian gold from Colombia. So there was a lot of palimpsest and drawing and painting with acrylics and not much collage. Yeah, I have to say.
Pero I'm gonna switch to Spanish. Pero es interesante también que hayan optado por eso, porque quiero mostrar un poquito, quiero poner la grilla de fondo, un segundo. Oh, I didn't knew that would happen. Okay, I have to put presentation. Venga, ahí va. Tener esto de fondo para hacerles esta pregunta, porque es muy interesante que hayan hecho eso, porque ¿se escucha usted? Que hayan hecho eso porque hay algo que de lo que acabas de describir, something that you just described is that you were not religious about the archive. You were not treating the archive so much as an archive. You treated it with freedom. O sea, el archivo fue tomado de manera lúdica, fue tomado en partes parciales y sabían que no iban a contar, y esto fue claro desde el comienzo, fue una discusión que tuvimos, y no había modo ni intención de contar la historia completa de American Society, ¿no? Entonces, hubo una batalla, digamos, interna sobre cómo pensar esto, porque de alguna manera estábamos también pensando sobre la idea de una cronología. Y ellos describían que querían hacer una cronología. Y mandaron distintas propuestas, esta fue la que terminó ganando, de cómo se iba a saber que esto era una supuesta cronología. Y lo que ven en el fondo es el diagrama de arte moderno de Alfred Barr. So Alfred Barr, the first director of the MoMA, has this book, which actually the cover has this type of diagram in which he explains the history, a very teleological, organized history of modernism and abstraction that basically very naturally falls in abstract expressionism. Now we know that history is much more dirty, complex, and and multidirectional than that, and they represented that by putting this very chaotic background donde la cronología no tiene ningún sentido en verdad. Y eso fue como muy lindo porque me parece que les abrió una libertad que de otra manera no hubieran tenido.
Sí, claro, en verdad, primero hay que tener como digamos, una mirada de pájaro sobre todo el panorama, ¿verdad? Cuando uno entra a un archivo, es decir, evidentemente teníamos que hacerlo de manera cronológica para que se entienda una historia, es decir, ¿no es cierto? Del pasado hasta el presente. Eso estaba claro. Eh, bueno, debo decir que este trabajo ha sido muy importante para mí, en primer lugar, porque lo he trabajado con Nicole. Es decir, es el primer trabajo que hacemos juntos y ha sido maravilloso trabajar juntos. Estamos hace muchísimos años juntos y primera vez que trabajamos juntos, ¿no es cierto? Luego de un diálogo de años, ¿no? Entonces eso ha sido muy importante. Todas estas imágenes a mí me me despertaron también muchos recuerdos, porque de alguna manera, claro, yo nací en el 65, también hay ciertas identificaciones temporales, digamos, con las imágenes, no porque estuviera obviamente allí, pero por cierto espíritu de la época también, ¿verdad? Que uno ha vivido, todas esas cosas. Entonces, esa es una forma subjetiva también de abordar necesariamente el archivo, es decir, eh, eh, s- em, sentir las imágenes, ¿verdad? Y los discursos que están implícitos en ellas. Entonces, pero claro, estas imágenes, la reproducción que nosotros hacemos en collage o dibujos, podría ser suficiente, pero para este caso, lo primero que a mí me llamó la atención, de alguna manera lo sabía de manera abstracta, pero al ver el material, porque confrontarse con el material siempre es algo, digamos, es un momento de la verdad, em, la diversidad, o sea, la pluralidad de expresiones artísticas a lo largo de 60 años, ¿no es cierto? En una institución que tenía una finalidad cultural, dentro, por supuesto, de una lógica geopolítica, eso está claro, pero diplomática, ¿no? Y eso es interesante, ¿no? Porque la diplomacia es algo que hay que rescatar, además, hoy en día, ¿no? Es algo muy importante. Entonces, esa pluralidad diplomática, digamos, fue lo primero que me llamó la atención. Es decir, desde el 65 hasta hoy en día, si uno ve el panorama, digamos, de las exposiciones, hay una variedad impresionante de expresiones. Incluso Siqueiros hizo su muestra. Claro, ¿dónde están? En fin, después vemos la imagen, con unos pumpkins, caballitos, obviamente, un pintor comunista, exponiendo esas cosas, que por supuesto es muy legítimo, era su obra, pero why not? No iba a exponer otras cosas, pero estuvo allí, ¿no es cierto? Es decir, la pluralidad de expresiones en la American Society ha sido muy impresionante. Y entonces dije, esta pluralidad, esta diversidad, de alguna manera está contrapuesta a las ideas, por supuesto, em, em, ya no diré dominantes en los 60, porque en los 60 también, digamos, en la expresión artística del mundo del arte empieza a abrirse, digamos, pero, sin embargo, todos estos cánones antiguos, de los cuales Barr todavía, de alguna manera permanecía, ¿no es cierto? Esta cosa teleológica muy eurocéntrica, etcétera. De pronto uno se da cuenta que la historia de la American Society, de alguna manera, quizás sin proponérselo, simplemente porque está tratando con un continente tan diverso, este, pues refuta esta idea, digamos, esta teleología del arte moderno, es decir, es una cosa muy centrada en Europa, básicamente, ¿no? Entonces, de alguna manera fueron posmodernos avant la lettre, sin proponérselo, ¿no? Y eso me pareció interesante. Entonces, y como pensamos inmediatamente en Barr, porque, bueno, uno, por lo menos yo pienso siempre en opuestos, ¿no? En dialéctica, en contraposiciones, contrapuntos. Entonces, dije, Barr, claro, esto es lo contrario de Barr, o sea, lo deshizo al hombre. Y entonces decidimos coger este esquema que hizo Barr, que es muy bonito, pero bueno, es realmente súper limitado, ¿verdad? Eh, y desmontarlo, y, digamos, convertirlo en un ornamento, ¿no? Lo hemos convertido en un ornamento que ya no tiene función, tiene una función solamente ornamental, ¿no?
Puedo, si puedo aclarar un detalle, esto además fue clave en términos pragmáticos, porque hay algo que a mí me gusta recordarle a la gente, que es que una exhibición, mucho más que ideas, son problemas logísticos. Le guste a quien le guste. O sea, una exhibición tiene espacio limitado, budget limitado, y siempre uno tiene dos opciones: o hace ideas muy pequeñas y muy sucintas y muy aburridas, o hace grandes ideas, le da libertad a los artistas, eh, y permite que con eso hagan cosas, pero uno tiene que aceptar que no va a ser perfecto, ¿no? Y en ese sentido, que ellos mismos se hayan dado la libertad de no seguir esa cronología, terminó siendo conceptualmente muy significativo y terminó siendo mucho más inteligente que si hubieran querido contar esa cronología. Además, quiero contar un poco cómo se hizo la exhibición. I'm going to switch to English. So our wonderful team took upon this huge challenge of how were we going to have Nicole and Fernando work with our archive when they live in Lima, right? So, and also when our archive, the Archive of America Society, is not really indexed. It's not indexed, it's not organized. It's organized to the best of the abilities of the different people that were part of the team. America Society has a very important history and has accumulated importance. And I feel like that gives it a lot of weight. And I can say that with no shame because it's not about me, it's about 60 years of history. But it's always had a small team. It's always had been like a boutique exhibition place, in New York. Anyway, so the archives are like files of the exhibitions and research files from previous directors and curators of the institution that are like laying there. And they were organized profusely very well by Daniela and the people before. But so she created this amazing setup in which she would like have weekly meetings on Zoom with them, and she used we have the scanners that film from above, like they have in libraries. We have a small version of one of those, and she set it up so it would be the camera for Zoom. So incidentally, Daniela ended up creating the digital version of a transparency projector, which is something that if you have more than 40 years, like I do, you know precisely what it is. And it's a product from the 1960s. So, like, I love to witness that because it was this, like, different timelines and different, you know, I don't know if everybody knows what I'm talking about. I don't know the term in English, but I had that in my university, you put a transparency and it's a mirror and it will like go up. So that's basically what she created, you know. And it was amazing because they were able to go through, they had an exhibition history. They were able to go to the exhibition files and to select materials. They would tell her which ones they wanted to scan. They also received books. Gabriela Rangel, my predecessor, did an amazing book about the history of the art program for the 50th anniversary. So that was, I think, a very important resource. Anyway, so, but pragmatics, this exhibition, like most institutions would have said, like, oh, we need a grant from the Getty with, 45 archivists working during 6 months to do this. And it's like sometimes you can do it with less. And I prefer to do with less than not to do.
I have to say we trained Daniela. We trained Daniela Sai to meet, our thinking. It was quite an experience. So at the end, like Daniela was like, "Yeah, you're interested in that, so I pull this," and you're, and also we found other than the paper archives, we found two amazing videos. One of Botero in the 70s, arriving to New York for his show at the America Society. And there it is. And one of Carlos Cruz Diez giving a walk through um, his work in what's the name? Cromonologías, ¿no? Yeah, cromosaturación, yeah, cromosaturación, sorry. Yeah, to some Peruvian collectors there. So, and there we have also the first edition of the translated Cien Años de Soledad from Gabriel García Márquez, no, which is like a total jewel, no. So yes, it was really like we found amazing material, and also going through some of the review magazines, we found some interesting footage. There's the 72 or 73, the light blue one.
Oh, no, already.
Yeah, the camera.
Well, that one, that.
The next one. Yeah, this is one, but the next one, not next. Yeah, that is an interesting one. That this is the one I did. And this was the year that Lezama Lima died. So I included a letter that Julio Cortázar wrote to Lezama Lima after his passing, and it was very moving. And it well, you can read it afterwards, no? But so he is telling like posthumous, no, to Lezama Lima, no, that he had never seen somebody that had made peace with death so clean and so amazingly, no? Because he was sick and they were friends. Like he went to, like Cortázar went to visit him at Trocadero, and he would knock on the window, and go in, or go out for a walk with him. And and yeah, he was like, no, I'm in peace with death, like I made what I made, and I finished Paradiso, and I finished this second version, and so and so. And so this letter is one of a very fantastic and moving ones that I found, like, in the archive, that and in the magazine, no, that como the magazine recopilates, a lot of mostly literature and culture in general, no, but there's a lot of jewels there. So yeah, this is one.
I think it's very interesting also that you chose from the archives also external press, like articles from the New York Times. Um, it's really incredible to see how, these artists were referred through history. And I think something, and Fernando, maybe this is a way for us to start talking about your practice. Something that Fernando does is that he will replicate something that is mechanical, like a photograph or a newspaper, something that Walter Benjamin would say reproducible, like eternally, like something that is necessarily a multiple, and you turn it into a unique thing because you use techniques of, drawing and ink. And with that, you are doing two things, if I can say, and please correct
Yes,
me. Yeah.
yeah, you are right. It's a counter movement, no? Because I'm working um, with mass-produced images,
Hmm.
right? And by my process is with the hand, no? It's very subjective in this way, no? At,
Yeah.
artesanal, no?
Right.
Handmade. So
Two things
it's
about
not
that. Yeah.
no es para fetichizar la mano, pero but it's the way I approach the
No, but I think it's important because
yeah.
I don't think you are fetishizing it. You are highlighting it in a specific way. Or maybe, to correct myself, you are fetishizing it, but that's okay because fetish is
Well,
important in
maybe.
culture, right? I mean, ask Freud about it. Fetish is a part of culture. And what I love about what you do is like three things. One, that this effort, this artisanal effort, this absurdity of like rewriting the whole article letter by letter,
Yeah,
by hand.
yeah. I mean, this practice has in some way a performative aspect, no? But it's not um, no está en primera línea como, digamos, como intención, ¿no? But my idea, because the document is always a fact of the past in some way, no? And it belongs to the archive, and the drawing in the reproduction. Through the drawing is a new fact in some way. No, it's new.
It becomes
And
a new fact and it becomes a new present. And it
yes,
also highlights by denaturalizing, mechanical objects are naturalized by us. We're used to seeing newspaper all the time. By denaturalizing it, by redrawing it, you also make us pay attention to what is written there.
yeah. I mean, and the difference, no, between the original and the copy is what lo que me interesó desde un principio siempre, ¿no? That is, well, I can comment some images. This is Simon Bolivar. I think it was end of in the beginning of the 80s, an exhibition here with the big Colombian, no? Muy actual. Next, maybe. Oh,
You want to cualquier cosa.
sí, la de Botero. Claro. Yes.
Yeah. This is a good example of like chaotic reproduction, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, that is one exhibition curated by Aimé. and with a version in Buenos Aires and the second one here in New York, about the myth El Dorado, no?
But let me go. Sorry, I have to look for it manually. Ay, quería, perdón, Miguel.
La de Botero. Yes,
Ah,
and that was the first drawing I did for this project, no. And uh, another aspect of this project, very interesting for me, it's to retomar el color, no, because I was a painter before. In some way, I am always a painter because I use the ink and ¿cómo se dice pincel? And the brush, and it's always a humid technique. It's not too far away from the peinture, the painting. And but for me fue la ocasión para retomar el color, no, to return to, but always as my character is in a very moderate way. No, we see what happened in the future, but well, that is and I like this kind of images, no. In this case, it's a press images in Mr. David Rockefeller with Mr. Botero, and the artwork. But in this case, it's very funny because I mean, one, two, three, four personages. One is a pictorial representation, and the other ones are in the photo, the real ones, the real personage. But in my reproduction are the four personages in the same level, no. So there's a typical situation between the collector, the man of power, of money, the artist, no. And in this case, por casualidad, the common man, no. I mean, I like this kind of images, no. And also, historically, it's also interesting. I mean, tenía que estar David Rockefeller porque es un personaje muy importante quien fundó la institución, no. But his brother was also related to this idea of not more Pan-Americanism, because I mean, the American society is also in the genealogical history of relations between United States and Latin America, and que remonta to the 19th century with the Monroe Doctrine, the idea of Pan-Americanism, and the whole contradictions between in this relation, no, in political, economical, and cultural terms. And eh, Nelson Rockefeller fue el presidente Roosevelt le encomendó the years of the politic of good neighborhood, ¿no? Algo más que no, realmente hoy haría mucha falta. Le encomendó a Nelson Rockefeller encargarse de la política estadounidense frente a América Latina durante la Segunda Guerra Mundial, during the Second World War. And they created the Inter-American Relations Bureau, no? And that was a very interesting situation during the Second World War, to move Latin America away from the influence of the Axis powers, no? I mean, it was a good thing, but it's a kind of a genealogical relation between the two projects, no. And
I like also that something that they did by doing this is like also like unearthing a lot of like very interesting projects that took place here that now would think like, oh, but a lot of and again, I mean, I can say this because I didn't do it. It's not talking about me; it's talking about the institution. It was a lot. There were a lot of firsts at American society, and that's really striking. A lot of firsts that we don't remember about. A lot of like very important artists that showed here for the first time, or maybe for the only time in their lifetime, and that later, appear in our art histories. Um, I mean, look at this show. I mean, a show about uh, 19th century photography in Brazil. Like, right now that sounds like so new and so weird, but at the same time it was done. So sometimes that's the interesting effect of these like impossibly large and missions that carry too much. Mm. How was it? Yeah, tell me.
The other one?
Eta.
Sí, American Society. Yeah, I find very interesting this one because on the left side you have I mean a report about Pedro Figari, this Uruguayan painter, right? And and on the right side and report that is 1986. A report about the new politics and from the U.S. Department of State and the new politics, the new neoliberal politics no, promovidas por el Banco Mundial, el Fondo Monetario Internacional, etcétera, etcétera, ¿no? That, I mean, this kind of esos pequeños guiños, digamos, a la situación política, geopolítica o geoeconómica también me interesaban que estuviesen presentes en la serie, ¿no?
Sí, absolutely. I wanted to ask you before we open to the public. I wanted to ask you both, if you don't mind sharing with us. Sorry, it's a surprise question. How was it? How difficult it was to work together as a couple? Was it easy? Was it difficult? Like, were you fighting? Like, I want to do it about this one. I want to use this archive.
Actually, it was quite smooth. Well, at the beginning, of course, no, each one having their own studio forever, and deciding to have one studio, and we had like a separation to have a little bit of intimacy and not look at each other like all of the time, and also like the headphones, in case, I don't know, he wanted to listen to music and I wanted to listen to a podcast or whatever, no. And but no, it was actually pretty smooth because, I mean, this is the first time we present our work together, but we've been already working for a show we have in Cusco next year. So we've been researching, reading together and researching, and actually we started to produce that. We hold on that production because of the proposition of American Society. We couldn't celebrate the 60th anniversary and the 61st year, right? But yeah, and also, like, as artists and intellectuals, we've been, like, snatching books from each other, and commenting on many things, like, forever, and learning from each other. So, I mean, it's an ongoing conversation, and there's, like, Fernando is very, like, historically driven, and I am, I mean, I also deal with history, but I love, like, anthropology, and so, like, there were certain choices that were pretty obvious, and of course he was driven to certain material and I was driven to certain others, and then we commented on, like, the conceptual, like, grand scheme, and actually we talked about, like, every little detail.
Yes.
No, like, for example, of including Abya Yala society as, predominant in the series. I think was, like,
Can you explain that a little bit?
very pertinent.
Yeah, because it is not a document from the
Right.
institution.
This was like an addition, no?
An addition. It's a kind of
Yeah.
political fiction.
Yeah. No, actually, Abya Yala,
I mean,
it's
Aviala Society doesn't exist.
no, it's an invention of ours, no. But Abya Yala means, like, the indigenous communities. It comes from a place in Panama, but the indigenous communities from several countries in South America and the Americas in general has adopted it as, like
Una
count,
reivindicación, ¿no?
yeah, yes,
Esta área
como like a
histórica.
counter push, from these more westernized gaze and ideas, no?
Yeah, and
So
related to the name of America, which is,
yeah,
of course, of European origin, no? Americo Vespucio,
yeah,
America. Well, then this Abiyal is the name that in a political way, many indigenous people from the Americas adopted to call the whole
name the
name the
America.
whole continent. No,
Yeah.
it's a political statement. No, and well, this a kind of eh, ya, ¿cómo se dice? Un guiño que hemos puesto ¿no es cierto?
Yeah.
Señalar que
Yeah.
también hay otros, there are
Vision.
also others visions from our continent as well.
Yeah,
It's,
and
it's
that
part of the earth, no?
yeah, and that has a dialogue, a strength dialogue to our idea to bring and to include the bar chart as an ornament of these squares and arrows as just ornament and devoid of meaning, no? But like art historians and people that are related to the arts, they definitely recognize that on the backdrop, no?
And the
So
video is
that's also like a big statement, at least for me, no? And well,
here.
beyond this, I came up, yeah, I thought, like, because definitely you start to revisit text and material related to Latin America and everything, and I thought and started to review again, this famous compilation that is called Beyond the Fantastic, no? That is a book edited by Gerardo Mosquera, the Cuban art historian, but it has text, like uh, by many art historians from Latin America, no? And the idea was to expand and to situate another kind of a, like not put Latin America in just one category, and not think about it as exoticized and think about this idea of the real maravilloso or the fantastic, no? So go beyond that, no? So I thought about this idea of beyondisms, and sure enough, there were 3 shows on the list that had beyond included. And then I included beyond Alfred bar chart that is our show, no? So I invented so those 2 are like our additions.
And if I might say, like Mosquera's book is inspired by Beyond Geometry, which is an exhibition that was like one of the first very important key exhibition about geometry and one of the first to promote the idea of Latin American abstraction. Yeah, like there's I don't even want to go there. It's like a very long history of like, but it's all part of these like different missions and different historiographical trends and moments that where American society, whether we like it or not, was a protagonist just because it was the only space dedicated to art of the Americas. And because it was also created in dialogue and with many of the people that were at MoMA creating the new ideas of what modernism and abstraction were. And they're like nearby. They were founded by the same people. And I don't mean just the Rockefellers, like Alfred Barr was consulting on the creation of American society, as were like many other. Anyway, the first curator of American Society, Stanley Gandley, was in dialogue with them. Recently, MoMA Archives contacted us because they found like some architectural plans of the adaptation of American Society's galleries that were in the archives of René de Ottencourt, who was like a big curator there. They were like, I don't think this fits our archives. Would you like to have it? And brought it to us. And Daniela, who's now our like eximious archivist, like placed it in our archive. So, you know, this is not by chance. What she's using humor to reiterate and to show these repetitions of history. I love something much more simple about this piece, which is that you are highlighting how curators have very limited creativity. We all do, like, and I think it's important to remember that, like we are you cannot be beyond the budget, beyond the space, beyond the time that you have to think time, do a title, like life is limited and we all do the best we can. Anyway, so yeah, with that, I think that's a good.
Yeah, we have a lot fun also by thinking these kind of things. No, we was beyond every time beyond. What do you want? We are beyond.
You know what?
Beyond what?
Yes. So I don't know. I'm gonna keep going through this. I'm gonna leave it here because I love this work. Okay. Anybody has any questions? Anything you would love to ask them, please? Okay, we have first person over there. Solo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, I actually have two questions. Fernando, you start going into that, but I want to hear more. Every time that you approach an archive, you also have self reflection about yourself, about your art. So if you can talk a little bit more about what you discover, rediscover about yourself, like going through this archive. And the other one, I also want to hear both of you being um, archivalistas. I'm sure that's not a word, but you know what I mean, using them. Have you had time to reflect on what does it mean now you becoming part of the America Society archive?
Oh, thank you. Uh, well,
We still have to buy the work for that to happen, and I don't know if we can do because we're not a collecting institution. So suspense on that / pressure to the institution.
um, when you work with an archive, always is you plunge into the archive, and it is a immersive experience. In this case, was very particular because the distance. No, it was a research made by Zoom. The first time I did something like that. No, normally you are going to the archive and you spend hours and I don't know in the libraries. In this case was very different. Um, but when you have the material with you, you receive it virtually. You have with you, and uh, of course you are thinking about the images and so on and. Um, Well, for me, it was, as I say, it was very interesting because I work a lot with the political history in this from all these decades, and this case was from the not the point of view, but the material was the culture, the cultural politics, and that what is a bit different and. ¿Cómo te digo? Ha sido muy inspirador porque me ha dado muchas ideas también, o sea, reflexionar sobre, nuevamente, ¿no? Sobre lo que es el continente americano, los Estados Unidos, Canadá, México, América Latina, etcétera. Pero no solamente desde un punto de vista, digamos, intelectual o todas las discusiones de la identidad, digamos, continental o latinoamericana, el norte, el sur, etcétera, etcétera, sino de una manera muy subjetiva también, ¿no? Uno como peruano, en este caso criollo, blanco, de Lima, ¿no es cierto? En el Perú, cómo es el Perú, los vecinos, todo lo que está ocurriendo. Es decir, creo que estamos también en una época de redefiniciones, ¿no es cierto? Estamos en una época de transición a algo que no conocemos. Ojalá que no sea tan malo como parece. Pero sí, me ha llenado de cuestionamientos más que respuestas, ¿no? Pero digamos que hay algo bonito en saberse también de esta parte del continente, ¿no? Solamente que es haberse nacido aquí, ¿no es cierto? Solo que, bueno, quizás debemos que es lo que también se intenta aquí, a nuestra manera, quizás de posiciones distintas, pero seguir con el diálogo tanto a nivel intersubjetivo como también internacional, ¿no? En fin, ahí entraríamos a otros temas, pero este, lo último que se me ocurrió, me vino una idea de con lo bueno, digamos, lo interesante digamos, del proyecto de los 60 años, la mirada, con todo lo crítico que uno pueda tener también, por las partes geopolíticas, etcétera, pero también lo interesante, lo positivo, y la última idea que me vino a la cabeza hace unas semanas fue con relación también, ya, porque todo se mezcla, ¿no? Uno, digamos, uno hace la investigación en el presente, ¿verdad? Entonces estás viendo el material del pasado en el presente. La historia siempre se escribe de alguna manera desde el presente, ¿no? Entonces, no es que estemos escribiendo historia, pero bueno, de alguna manera le estamos, sí, a partir de las imágenes, reelaborando toda una historia. Entonces, este aspecto diplomático a mí me parece que es muy rescatable, ¿no? Y esta idea de make diplomacy great again, ¿no? Más o menos. Es, es, es lo que me vino a la cabeza al final de este proyecto.
Igual me parece importante, ¿no? Que hay algo que dejamos claro, me acuerdo que lo hablamos, creo, en un momento, en uno de los primeros Zoom, que la invitación no era a hacer una obra que estableciera ningún tipo de juicio sobre la
No.
institución, porque no sería posible, incluso si quisieran. It's just impossible, you know, like an intervention of an archive, it had to be playful, it had to be open, it had to raise questions. I would never push an artist to give answers. I mean, answers should, if anything, be given by political representatives chosen by the people, you know,
Mm.
or if anything, like if they can, you know, like doesn't seem like they can lately. So, I don't know. Any other question? I want to make sure that we can.
Hola, gracias por la charla. ¿Por qué incluyeron a la Virgen, que no es la guadalupana, parece la Virgen de Lourdes, ¿no?
Es la de Guadalupe. Sí,
No,
es la Virgen de Guadalupe. A ver,
su país.
pero sí, es la Virgen de Guadalupe, pero
Está intervenida.
no, que es una representación peruana, porque fue en sí, fue en una muestra que hubo, ¿cuándo fue? ¿No? Sí, de arte colonial o virreinal, como se le quiera llamar, peruano, del año 70 o 82, fin de los 70, inicio de los 80, ¿no? Y está esta imagen de la Virgen de Guadalupe, pero a partir de una ilustración peruana, ¿no? Sí, bueno, la Virgen de Guadalupe también bueno, es venerada en todo el continente, así como...
No, no, y yo estoy muy agradecida
Sí,
que la hayan puesto y además,
sí,
curiosamente, hicieron ponerla cerquita de mi escritorio y yo me sentí muy protegida,
sí.
muy protegida. Mi hijo se llama Guadalupe,
Ah,
así que sí, sí, es un
aquí nomás
nombre del
hay
medio.
un santuario a San Martín de Porres, ¿no? Que es un santo peruano. Es decir, en todo el continente se veneran a nuestros santos católicos.
Hola, muchas gracias a los tres. Estoy pensando en la cita de Roland Barthes, no sé en castellano, entonces en inglés, que dice más o menos que history is always the matter of a choice. Y estoy pensando en digamos, la edición de historia que tenían que hacer, sobre todo imagino en términos logísticos, por la historia larga de la institución y poco espacio al final que queda abajo. Entonces, ¿qué se quedó fuera que le hubiera gustado, que, que tuviera que darse afuera, que les hubiera gustado incluir?
Ya, algo que salta a mi mente, definitivamente, Obispo de Rosario, sí me hubiese encantado. Em, em, ¿Qué piensas tú?
Bueno, quizás más imágenes del Caribe. Eh, lo que pasa es que también hay una cierta contingencia, ¿no? Cuando uno trabaja con un archivo, es lo que hay, ¿no? Entonces, de pronto hay una imagen que no te sirve porque simplemente no está muy mala o no ves cómo representa. Es decir, entonces no había muchas imágenes, habían algunas, pero no muchas, ¿verdad? Bueno, está bueno,
Sí.
ya.
Trembling thinking comes to my mind too.
What?
Trembling thinking, that is,
Trembling.
yeah.
The exhibition Trembling Thinking, which was an exhibition about Pia Carrera
Sí.
and
Exacto.
En términos de
and Glissant.
categorías de imágenes, porque claro, para estructurar todo to structure this kind of work, you have to I mean, in our practice, to decide what kind of images. No, we have portraits, we have publicaciones de exposiciones, ¿qué otro tipo de, en fin,
Yeah, newspaper,
newspapers,
cutouts. We even
uh,
had poems.
we try to make a kind of un equilibrio en el número, ¿no? De las distintas categorías de imágenes, ¿no?
Y si puedo hacer una respuesta a Bart, qué atrevida. History is a matter of choice, and history is many histories, and it's also a matter of choice among existing possibilities, ¿no? Como digo, seguramente lo desarrollaba esas ideas, ¿no? Pero sí, o sea, había una posibilidad limitada de qué había en el archivo, de qué había en el archivo, por qué se había hecho. Hay un montón de exhibiciones en American Society que no se hicieron y se deberían haber hecho, o que se deberán hacer, no sé. Hay un montón de exhibiciones que se hicieron, pero que por distintas razones no quedó material que les sirviera a ellos para representar. Y también, nada, o sea, hay un montón de exhibiciones que no se van a hacer porque, bueno, el mundo es limitado de vuelta.
Claro, además tenemos un espacio limitado, es decir,
Y también hicieron un esfuerzo muy grande para trabajar con un archivo bastante más reducido de música. La historia del programa de música de American Society es muy importante también y ellos hicieron un esfuerzo para reproducir una cantidad de casos paradigmáticos que están abajo en la exhibición que pueden ver. Creo que por casualidad no quedaron en este PowerPoint, pero están por ahí. Y también, bueno, de la literatura, ¿no? De cantidad de autores que fueron importantes, que aparecen a partir de la revista Review, pero bueno, em, lamento decir que las artes tienen esa calidad gráfica que otras disciplinas artísticas no tienen. Me voy a poner en nacionalista futbolera de las artes visuales, pero sí, we're just pretty.
Thanks so much for the talk. So my question is about process. I think maybe building on Aime's last question, you gave us both a good sense of how you approach the archive differently. I'm wondering if during this process you found that your own approach either opened up or maybe reinforced in how you normally would work with archives.
Yes, for me, it definitely was more flexible, and there was much more drawing and painting involved than usually there is. Maybe that's something that's gonna prevail, or I don't know. But yeah, and as I said before, I was, trying to see what like try to gaze and to go through the material I gathered, and Daniela could send us with a really open perspective, and a lot of respect for the artist too. Yeah, that was very present.
The amount of respect we could have, and I'm going to make self-criticism here, we only came up with this idea in mid-December 2024. The anniversary was 15 days after. And they took up, I want you to dimension the craziness of like inviting two artists, they were so generous to even consider this, and it was like just an idea. We had been thinking about this for a while, and Carla was like, oh, they're visiting and they actually would do great. I was like, there's no way we should do this. The problem that Carla and I have is that we feed each other into doing things we shouldn't do in the last minute, I need to do it more and more. We're going to have a very simple, we're not going to have an anniversary show. And I'm so glad we did it though, because they were like so patient with us and they accepted the challenge of doing something in such short notice through the distance. We didn't have a budget either to really like bring them to live here 6 months and spend through the archive, which of course we would have loved, but it just was impossible to get approved. The director of America Society decided to allocate a small budget for this project on December 20 when she was about to go on holidays. Like it was like really. I want to confess all this because that's the reality of institutions also, and most institutions, they are trying to say, no, don't do it. And we try to say, yes. I think sometimes it's a great idea like this one. In most cases, it's a terrible idea. And we're trying to learn to say no.
Have another question?
So thank you very much for a very interesting conversation. 2 days ago, we had the celebration, the 60 years of American society. And we were delighted with a very rich history, which was narrated with details of, who became what, with influence in various aspects and histories of the society. Um, Now, if we were to think about your work, and you were asked to summarize a narrative arc, would you be able to do that, or is it a complicated task? Is it simple to summarize the work you've done in this project, in a simple narrative arc of the various aspects of the archive? I'm trying to compare it to what we saw 2 days ago. I think you were there. I saw you there. And you remember the sort of very interesting presentation of the history of the society.
I have to say that there's very little perspective right now to summarize such a encargo. ¿Cómo se dice encargo? Bueno, such a mission, and we are like really like absolutely like tired and overworked, and we gave it all, because we really wanted to do the best for this for them, for the anniversary. So I guess that's a question that I would like to think and to meditate on later on, when I have a little bit more of time to analyze the whole process and the selection. Yes.
I would love to hear what they have to say, but something to highlight also with regards to that comparison and to contextualize to the others. What happened on Thursday was a conversation with the biographer and historian who worked as the biographer of the Rockefeller family for many years, and who, has a very narrative, like I don't want to say it's a narration also, is it has a little bit of literature also, because it's history. History is always a version of what really happened. History is not facts or, of truth. But the aim of any historian is to try to say, of most historians, is to say a coherent history. And I'm very glad that they don't have that mission, the artists in general, them in particular, but artists in general. And it's the same thing about how I would never be so interested or ask an artist to try to give answers. I much prefer artists who pose new questions about the assumptions of what we have. And, I feel more comes from that. Another question?
So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Fernando. Thank you, Aimé. Again, gracias a todos. And I think we can continue talking next door. Thank you.